Hi Michaela, this is Fancy, and I'm looking at your design and comparing it to what you say in your description of it. And you say you are working with points of emphasis, but you feel like they're not really working out. Um, you do feel that the transparencies are working for the most part, however. And you agree that there's a lot of work to be done still before the due date on Friday. So, with that said, I can see that you've divided up your composition into the 6 major hue families, the primaries and the secondaries for the printers. And within each you have multiple uh, points of emphasis. Some are moving from dark to light, and some are moving from light to dark. Um, so for your magenta to purple to cyan leg, you have a straight shot from your magenta to orange to yellow. You have a straight shot, but from your cyan to green to yellow, it's moving a bit around a corner. So you need to sandwich more of that green in between. So right now you just have just a tiny bit of green in between. It's not enough to make a successful transparency. Um, just by their nature, um, the transition between orange and yellow, because they're so similar in value, works better or easier than say yellow to green, because green is darker. By the same token, magenta to purple works well, and cyan to green usually works pretty well also. So the ones that you'll have the most difficulty are with moving from magenta to orange, to yellow to green, and possibly purple to cyan. Those are the hardest ones to transition from area to area. I think that you need to simplify it. There's just too many points of emphasis, and when you have too many, then it feels like you don't have any. The viewer doesn't know what to focus on. So right now you just need to simplify. I would make the points of emphasis bigger, um, and that's how I would start my second iteration. When you are transitioning from one hue family to another, those boundaries between those two colors, for the most part, where those boundaries meet, you need to use values from each hue family that work well in regards to vanishing boundary, and they need to be in the middle values of each of those families' scales. So here, if we kind of look at the boundary of yellow and orange, um, you can see it's working because you've used values that are light from each of their scales, and they kind of blend um, rather seamlessly in some areas, like here and in here, but you're using the lightest values. You need to move to using the middle values, or at least the orange. The yellow, it's most representative of yellow when in the lighter values. Um, so I can see why you're mixing the lightest values of yellow, which is pretty pure. This is probably number 2 step of yellow, with the lighter steps of the orange. And the orange, this might be, let's see, let's roll up to your scale here. Oh, well, you do have both of these next to each other, but you can see their boundaries aren't vanishing here. So think of mostly middle values when you're thinking of the boundaries where these color families come together. And think about simplifying your points of emphasis into larger points of emphasis. Take a look at some of the other posts that are using points of emphasis, and you'll see that yours is just a bit too busy right now. But it is good that you've at least um, restricted the points of emphasis within their hue families, and that helps to organize it a bit. You can imagine if these points of emphasis were scattered all over the place and all mixed up, it would be really busy. But again, try to simplify. Let's go to your scale. Oops, I can't scroll all the way up. So your first row looks good, and your last row looks good. Your sixth row, um, look how nice this is here. But like this one could go darker, um, or these two can go darker. That might be better because it's not vanishing well here. This needs to go darker in order to vanish here. This needs to go, both of these need to go darker. You want to maintain this one, so both of these need to go darker to vanish with this one, and then this is not vanishing either. So darker, these two uniformly darker. This one just a little bit darker. This is almost there. Second row looks pretty good. Look how nicely these work. This one is a hard one to get, and you've maintained, or you've achieved vanishing boundaries for the most part, except for these two steps here. These don't vanish well. So first row, second row looks good. Need to go darker here. So both of these, this is working pretty well, so you need to make sure that these both get darkened at the same rate or same speed as does this one. This works really well. So these three need to go darker. This one needs to go slightly darker so that you get good vanishing boundaries here. All of these four need to go darker. Otherwise, you do have some grouping here. The purple could possibly go a little bit lighter here, but you don't have any grouping here necessarily. I'm looking at this one here. I'm looking to see which one is your most successful scale. There's some grouping here. And there's a big jump here and softer jumps here, so I don't think it's the orange. Very soft boundary here. So you can see if you push this one darker, you're not going to get such a big value jump here. So darker, a little bit darker, and that will even out. If you can work on these kind of middle steps, that will help a lot. All right, hope that helps, and I look forward to seeing what you come up with for tomorrow's critique.